This is the Twice Over Movies podcast, and I'm your host, Faraz. Today we got a special preview episode on Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Just want to point out that the Almost Famous discussion episode will be released next Thursday, September 10th. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, you have more time to watch it. And if you want to know more about it without any spoilers, listen to our preview episode from last week. Also, this Monday, we released our preview episode for Nocturnal Animals, and this upcoming Monday, we will be releasing our preview for $1 Million Baby. Remember to subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Twice Over to keep up with our releases, and if you want to send us any feedback or suggestions. Of course, for today's episode, we got everyone on the team to preview Tenet, myself, Farhan, Fahad, and Yusuf.
Shay and I were both eating. Well, she was eating popcorn. I had some bunch of crunch, you know what I'm saying?
And I did something special for this movie. I made some cookies, and I brought them for everyone that came with me.
In the theater?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that illegal?
I guess I'm admitting to a crime on a podcast. Yeah,
Yeah.
I made some skillet cookies. Those were amazing.
You came prepared, bro. I want to go see a movie with you.
Is this how we're watching movies for like the next year, guys, or what?
To be honest with you, safely, I'm not going. But I don't think it's worth it.
You're not going again?
I don't think it's worth it, especially not for a Nolan movie. But
let's get back to the shot to my heart that Farhan just took, and let's talk about a Nolan movie.
No, I just said that just for you.
Yeah, so we are discussing Tenet today. This episode obviously is spoiler free. We're only going to go over our scores and our initial thoughts. Just a question for you guys. How many times have you guys seen this movie? I've seen it once.
I've seen it once, and then I was rewatching parts of it, clips.
Okay.
Like on the online,
yes,
on the
on the
internet?
nets.
So you've admitted to 2 crimes
No,
on this
no.
podcast episode.
No, I haven't admitted to multiple crimes. I've been watching clips. I haven't seen the whole movie twice.
Oh yeah, that is in the letter of the law. That if you don't watch the entire movie, it's actually not.
I mean,
illegal.
clips are posted online.
That is
many clips are posted online.
Yeah. No. You're right. We don't know which clips you were posting. They may have been the officially released ones. So we'll go with that. But I personally have only seen this movie once. I wish I had seen it twice by now. But yeah, I wasn't going through that twice. So and do you guys think a second watch would help generally?
Oh yeah.
Before we get into
of course it would. It's a Nolan movie.
Yeah, I think definitely. No. Yeah, it's almost designed to be watched multiple times, and I like that. But we can talk about what that means on the real basis of how we value the movie. But I definitely think that's something that he leans
because I have my own opinions on it being a 2-watch movie. Do you guys want to get into our scores now?
Sure.
Let's start with the narrative.
Let's go.
So my score for narrative is 75.
70. Narrative.
I'm at a 70 as well.
Wow.
I'm at a 50.
Ooh.
A 50. Okay. So, Farhan, I assume that you expected me to be a lot higher.
Not really. But I didn't expect to be on the same. I thought I was gonna be the lowest for sure.
I'm surprised I'm the highest.
I'm trying to be realistic here. I think. I'm trying very hard to be realistic about what I watched, right? Rather than I would love to fanboy Christopher Nolan all day, and I do really love a lot of his movies, but I think this one was about average in terms of the narrative, and that includes his direction, right?
Right.
So that goes directly to his contribution to the film. I think it was about average. I think there's a lot of things that he did nicely, and I think there's a lot of things that he didn't get quite right. Or maybe just not as much to my taste as he usually is.
So
agreed.
I'm kind of on the other end where I thought his direction was actually pretty great considering what we're talking about here, a very complicated story. It's the story itself that kind of pushes it down to average because who's really enjoying this story on their first watch? And then, like I said, I have my opinions on 2-watch movies, but the story is what brought it down towards a more average score.
Yeah.
The story is extremely complex here, right? I mean, he always goes high concept, but this felt super high
and
concept.
That's the reason why I gave it such a low score of 50. I felt the plot was way too contrived for its own good, and it was almost laughable in scenes. When they were laying out the time travel minutia, the scientist is explaining it, I laughed in several moments where she's explaining, because it's time travel movies are essentially nonsensical unless you obey certain strict rules, and even then, they ask us to suspend our belief in many ways, and this movie was just way too much for me. Other movies that I've seen, other sci-fi movies that have dealt with time travel, they've done a much better job with dealing with some of the same elements, and this movie was too complex for its own good.
I think I agree with you to an extent where time travel movies, and I'm a big fan of sci-fi movies generally, but you have to lay out the framework of the scientific concept that you're kind of pushing beyond norms, right? And in this case, it's going to be time travel, of course. You have to lay out how that works, and you have to, as you said, obey
Mm-hmm.
certain rules, right? And as long as you don't get too far outside of that, it seems like it's within the boundaries of the movie. I don't know that they stepped wildly out of there, but I felt like we didn't get as much detail and as much fleshing out of that concept as we normally get in a Christopher Nolan movie. And just as a parallel, I'll point to Inception, where the whole dream world and how dream sharing works is explained in such a natural way, and they have a whole scene where he's kind of walking a new person through the dream space and explaining how different things work, and you get to learn the rules very organically throughout the movie. That I didn't feel like we had that element here, and so you were kind of learning on the fly, and I didn't like that.
Totally
as
agree,
much.
Yusuf. One thing that I want to bring up actually is we've done a time travel movie before, right? Yusuf, me and you did Primer, and both of us gave a narrative for that a 95. Mainly because of what you just said, because the way they describe time travel in that movie is so much more organic in its presentation that it's just more easily digestible, and it's not kind of, like Fahad said, somewhat laughable at some moments where it's like you're just reading
It's
stuff
asking
to me.
too much for us to believe,
I don't even know that it was too much to believe for me. I can see that argument though, but yeah, again, it's just that you have to lay it out properly, and then it's more palatable. And it didn't feel like it had the moments that did that early on to establish that tone. And so after that, once like the plot is running at full speed, it's a little too late to start trying to explain things. And I think they did try to explain things as the movie went, but first of all, you can't do that in the high octane scenes that they're doing it. And also, I think we all can agree, right? The sound quality, which we'll get into, it made a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the learning a lot more difficult to do.
There's poor sound balancing. I think that's the universal experience, no matter if you're in a Dolby Theater or regular or IMAX or whatever.
So I think one thing that I felt also suffered here, as I'm comparing to other Christopher Nolan movies that I really love, is that this movie was not as character driven as a lot of those movies
100% agreed.
So despite the high concept that you have going on here, those movies really tie back to relationships between characters and their motivations. And I just felt like that was dead missing here, right?
Wait, you don't think CJ Watson's character was developed enough?
CJ Watson.
Oh man, that's the last time Farhan watched.
I'm assuming you're referring to the ex-Bull, but I'm confused as to who you're calling that in the movie.
That dude looks exactly like CJ Watson, bro.
No.
Oh, really? You think he looks like CJ?
He looks like CJ Watson.
Comment.
Or CJ Watson. CJ Watson. 100% agree. I'm staying kind of quiet. I'm gonna leave my thoughts for the discussion because I don't want to drag on too long. But I 100% agree with what you're talking about, and I think it's a good segue into our writing score.
Writing for me was a 60.
Same.
I'm at an 80.
I'm at a 60 as well.
I mean, I can tell you why I gave it a 60. Honestly, you got to realize that the story is so complicated that, I don't know, like 2/3 of the script is literally like reading a physics textbook or something. So there's nothing pleasant about the writing at all. The other third, there's some good moments here and there, but yeah, I just didn't think it was even average.
Okay, so I was going to say the problem's twofold, right? The editing and then the writing. So the writing's very quickly spoken and everything, which is fine, but then the editing just compounds the problem because they're cutting all over the place and you barely get a chance to process what they were saying. So that was a problem. So even though the writing's pretty sharply written, it kind of struggled to keep up with like the fast-paced movie because of the cutting and whatnot. And I was also going to say the writing it almost exclusively serves to build up the story, and but not to build the characters. And that's what Yusuf was alluding to before.
Yeah, it's very one-dimensional.
Right.
Yeah, I think we can all agree there's zero character development. Here's something that I noticed, and I noticed this actually, I think during Interstellar. Dialogue structure in, I'm gonna say, most Nolan movies, because I didn't really notice it in Dunkirk. I would have to watch Dunkirk again. Dunkirk doesn't even seem like it's directed by the same guy, by the way. Just because I forgot that he even directed it, because when I watch this, what's in my mind? Interstellar, Batman movies, Inception. Those are the movies that are in my mind, and I'm like, okay, that's a signature Nolan movie. They all have this signature thing dialogue-wise. It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen Law and Order.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. That's the dialogue structure. It's a little bit more sophisticated, but it's just back and forth investigational stuff, and that's all it is. What about this? Oh, and that's what that's what this is. Oh, okay, and then this.
This questions
but what about
and
this?
Answers.
And it's all questions and answers back and forth and back and forth, and there's no real substance in or nothing. Definitely nothing creative in any of it.
So the purpose of that, right, to go back and forth, it's to reveal information, which to me it's like it's a Fincher signature. It's like the movie is based on like who has information, who's giving it out, and stuff like that. Have you noticed that with Fincher movies?
I think you're right. And I mean, I think especially here in an espionage movie, it's going to lean more in that direction. But I think, Farhan, you're right. It's present in all of his movies. But again, his other movies balance that out with character development in the writing. And like, man, that's a huge hole here. Like, I didn't realize, because I do really love the high concept stuff that he does. But in a movie like this, where that really is what you get, and that's about it, it really did suffer for me. So, I mean, I guess I know I like character development, but I didn't realize how much I would miss it in a movie like this. And that is what really throws all of the dialogue into kind of this mechanistic to kind of move the plot forward and get things said. And it didn't work as well, especially when they were telling us so much about the, how the whole, thing works. I don't know what to call it without saying much, but it's how inversion works, right? That's what they call it. So it's how that works. It's all being fed to you through dialogue, and they're not really showing you as much as they do tell you, at least to set it up. And so, yeah, it's very much, I would say it's purposeful dialogue. So good for that, but it's not really so great in terms of providing depth.
Well, Yusuf, you did give it an 80. So what was the things that you liked about it?
So, I mean, the things that I did like about it is that, one, I liked that they didn't waste a lot of time setting up kind of the cliche elements of the movie, like, secret government agencies, la-di-da. They kind of brushed all over it, and it was just kind of understood that, like, yeah, the audience has been there, seen that. They know what to expect. We don't need to lay all that out. I liked that. I did like how the dialogue was purposeful, but, I agree, it got clunky at times. And he does what he usually does in these types of movies, in that in a lot of the mundane dialogue, I think there's a lot of hidden double meanings that you're only going to, you're going to catch some of them, but you're certainly going to miss a lot of them. And they're there as kind of little Easter eggs for you to find later. I'm sure I missed a lot of them, but I can already tell from just processing the movie that there are a lot of double meanings hidden in some of the dialogue that seems rather, useless, or is just kind of throwaway dialogue. There's second meanings hidden in there. So I did like that. And that's, again, another signature of his.
Yeah, most definitely. There is, I mean, obviously I did do some reading after watching the movie, and that's when it kind of, a lot of things were clicking, like, yeah, that's when this happened, that happened, and that's why things were being said a certain way. Yeah, so I'm surprised that we kind of have generally low scores right now. Let's go on to the acting. I gave the acting an 80.
65.
What?
70 for me.
I gave it an 80.
You're surprised.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought it was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, so I thought the acting was good all around, but
yeah.
You know what the problem was? The actors weren't asked to exhibit much range, and so most of the characters came off as like cool and detached, kind of like the protagonist in James Bond movies. That was the protagonist here. Yeah, I don't know. Literally, that's his name.
Protagonist.
Yeah, the only actor who showed much range was the actress.
The girl.
Yeah, what's her name again?
I thought Robert Pattinson did a pretty solid job too.
He did a solid job.
I disagree, man.
No, I really liked his acting.
I think
but
it's
such a small role.
We saw him in Twilight and this movie.
I've seen him in so many other movies. Have you not seen High Life? High Life or the new sci-fi movie that he's in?
I haven't seen any of those, but I think this is just such a, I don't know, man. I thought it was just there was nothing special. There was zero thing special about anybody. Even the girl who's probably the best performance in this movie still isn't anything special. She's a side character in any of the other movies that we give great acting scores in. So I mean, that's kind of my thing. I'm just comparing this to other stuff that we've reviewed, and I'm trying to stay consistent to my other scores.
Let's start with John David Washington, right?
Sure.
He is the star here. He was selected for this movie specifically after BlacKkKlansman came out. So, a lot of the onus was on him. What did you guys think of him overall in that role?
I thought he did a great job.
I don't think there was anything special. That's all I could say.
He played espionage agent. He played it really well. He
like cool and detached. Yeah,
detached, but I don't know. I just thought he played exactly what he was asked to do, and he was suave. He was kind of cool.
Right.
He was a badass. Like he fit the role. He did a pretty good job at doing it. I have nothing really bad to say about his performance.
All right.
I know that is kind of his role here, to kind of play the detached person. And again, without going back to it over and over, he's not asked to show much depth or character development.
But what espionage agent has it?
No, you're right. You're totally right. So I don't want to knock him too much. But he did feel a bit emotionless at times because of that. And, don't you think that was a bit of a, he just didn't have a lot to showcase from the acting standpoint? I'm not saying he did bad in what he did show, but he just didn't have to show very much.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that 100%. I don't think that the writers of this movie wrote the characters enough for them to be performed well enough for me to give a high score. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure with what they had, they did fine. They're serviceable, and that's it. Like, I don't think anybody was bad, but there's definitely nothing notable at all about the acting.
So Robert Pattinson, though, I thought was surprisingly good. And you're right, we haven't seen much from him, but we live in a Twilight world, man.
You guys need to see Robert Pattinson in more movies. There's so many good movies with him.
He was pretty good.
I know there are.
I thought he did a good job kind of playing, again, a more suave, more detached character. And he showed a lot more ability than I've ever seen from him. I mean, I felt like I had to give him props. And, we might be seeing a rebirth here. He's going into Batman now. Hopefully that'll be good, although I'm not holding my breath. But he just felt more natural than the others for me.
Guys, you're missing out. Robert Pattinson has been in so many good indie movies lately, and his acting chops are pretty up there.
I know he has been. I just haven't seen him. I'm just being honest. I haven't seen him.
Okay.
Sorry.
I
didn't mean to offend you, bro.
But you guys are making the mistake of acting like Robert Pattinson. This is his first good acting movie.
No.
All right.
I'm not. Well, I'm not even making the mistake of saying that this is a good movie.
No, his first good acting debut or performance. Yeah.
No,
Yusuf's making that argument, right?
No, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is nobody was, Robert Pattinson included, was not bad.
Mm-hmm.
The role is not written well enough for him to be good in it.
I kind of agree with him. Are you with you? Yeah.
I thought he did more than the others, but I do agree with that note generally, that a lot of the roles were in that fashion. But I mean, more than anything, he just didn't remind me of Robert Pattinson in this movie, and that's probably a first.
Okay.
It felt very different for him, and I was surprised. You know who did bother me a lot? I don't even know how to say his full name, but Kenneth Branagh. I think that's how it is.
Yeah.
He played Sator, who was our villain, right? I thought he was straight up bad.
I will say that the villain is probably the hardest character to be a good actor for, because it's hard to not fall into basic stereotypes or tropes of a villain, especially for this one. I don't think
he might have done.
He's Russian, right? Or from
no,
the old
he's
Soviet
like
Union?
Irish or something.
Estonian.
Right.
No, he's not the actual actor. I meant the character. Estonian, right?
Yeah, whatever. He's of Russian descent, essentially, right?
Yeah, of the old Soviet Union. But he kind of fell into the same stereotypes of this bad guy Russian dude. Considering that, he still did a pretty decent job. I didn't think it was bad, but he was probably the worst or the sore spot for me as far as acting went.
I thought there was some cliche deliveries, and there was some close-ups on his face where he was delivering a line that was just straight up stinkers. So
a lot of his movies do that. They try to do the signatures. He does this signature monologue sort of deal. I mean, Batman has it all throughout the movie, but that's a superhero movie, right?
To be honest,
but even Inception's got it. Even Interstellar's got it. I can't believe I didn't know this. Memento was his movie.
How did you not know that?
Yeah,
That's probably one of his
I
best.
forgot. I got to rewatch that movie.
Hey, you forgot. That's very in character of you for Memento. But it's like this felt a little elevated to me, probably because there's not a lot of Nolan movies that have like a singular villain, and this one did, and so something about that just struck me. But yeah, I won't disagree that there are some cliche deliveries, probably in all of his movies. There are moments like that, but here it seemed particularly sharp, and you can't get away with doing that with a central character like a main villain, and if you do that, you're really risking the overall tone of the movie, because the villain really affects all the motivations, and so I just felt like I got lost in that.
I will say shout out to the diversity of the cast.
Yes,
that was good.
That is props, and Nolan's not great at that, I don't think, but this one I saw some. So
because there's an Indian chick
and an Indian dude,
and there's a black main actor.
Hey, don't call Dimple Kapadia an Indian chick, okay?
And you're also forgetting
Himesh
Patel.
Yeah. He's been in a couple of British movies. This is a British film, right? A lot of British actors in here.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Nolan is English too, right?
Yeah.
Right. It takes place in the UK. It makes sense. Of course, Sir Michael Caine gets his shot in there. He's not heavily featured, but of course he had to make an appearance. It's a Christopher Nolan film, after all.
I like how his name is actually Michael in the movie. They didn't even bother giving him like a different character name.
He was due for a self-credit. I'm fine with that.
His name is Michael Crosby. Michael Caine plays Michael Crosby. Wow.
Yeah, that's what they changed half of it. Interesting. Anyway, but we're not even that far off, guys. Our low and high for acting is 65 and 80. So
yeah, we're totally not far off.
Are you guys proud of me? I'm being very balanced here.
No, I knew you would.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let's go into the themes. I gave this a 55.
Same.
All right. I gave it an 80.
I give it a score of 50, so a little bit lower than the other guys. I didn't think this was a thought-provoking movie as much as it was just like, laying out the mechanics of that
It tried.
universe. I mean,
you got to give it to him.
He tried.
It
tries to be heady, but he's in his own head. He's not like interested in having us understand this world or having us like explore this world. He's just like giving it to us.
Let's hear Yusuf out though. He did give it an 80.
That's a little sharp though, Fahad, don't you think? I mean, that's not him really, right? Like across his entire filmography, that is not a thing that he does.
No,
I agree.
You're right.
I beg to differ.
I agree.
Go ahead.
It's off here a little bit for sure, without a doubt. But I don't think that's him just kind of being cocky or something. I think he missed here. That said, I mean, there are natural kind of not just themes, I guess, but also, motifs and symbology that get built through kind of the high concept film that we're watching here. It's baked in there. So, no surprise, kind of the palindromic elements are, plentiful, and I did like the way that he worked those in. Again, I think a lot of the themes are more illuminated on a second watch, and I do look forward to that, but I'm already seeing the puzzle pieces, so that's where I landed at an 80. But it is a bit more fragmented than usual. I'll say that.
So I beg to differ on what you said earlier, is that this is not characteristic of him. This movie, honestly, is signature Nolan. Over the past, outside of Dunkirk, the other movies that I've seen from him, and I'm going to have to watch Memento, and maybe I just missed a bunch of stuff. I don't think so, because Memento was not, he was not
Memento's like his first big one, yeah.
That's like his first big one, so I don't think it was like that. But this is a very signature Nolan movie in a couple of different ways. One being that outside of the Batman movies, his movies are always they're about some topic that's so obscure. The ideas are so obscure, they're not fully formed at all. Just enough to make a serviceable movie that he then lends on the aesthetics to back up. I can already tell you what's our highest score going to be in this movie.
Acting.
Really?
No, I think it's gonna be aesthetics, right?
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
mine's
aesthetics.
aesthetics.
We all know that this was going to be some crazy action scene movie. There's going to be some sick scenes in this movie. And that's what he lends on. I feel like he has like an idea of like, okay, this is a scene that I want in this movie. How am I going to make my plot around this? You know, and that's where I get lost. Especially for a score like Themes, I'm tempted to even go lower, and I agree with Fahad on this, you know? And all those movies, there's always like some new crazy idea that's really interesting, but it's not thought out well enough at all, and all of the characters adjust to it like it's like they just learned, oh, today's Thursday? Oh, okay, I thought it was going to be Friday, but today's Thursday. Let's go about my day.
Are you referring to the sci-fi aspects of this movie or any of his movies?
This and any of his movies, the fact that it's a big thing that hits and they're like, oh, okay, cool. All right, so that's the way it is now. So that's how we're just living life like this now. It's a whole new thing that changes our whole dimension. But
that has nothing to do with the themes. I mean, that is.
I guess I'm just rattling off here on just.
I think you're ranting outside of the themes category, frankly.
Probably.
I mean, like, because I'm happy to debate you on that, but I just don't think we're talking about the themes really. And
you might be right. You might be right.
I think I can give you a lot of examples, not just this movie, but other movies that are heavily theme based. And you know, when we're talking about themes in terms of our, you know, the film factors that we're looking at, we're also talking about, you know, motifs and symbols and other things. But you know,
that's true.
The sci-fi.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
When he does sci-fi movies, you're right. He goes very high concept, and that has its flaws. So
here, let me bring this point, and I do believe that this is part of the themes. If it's not, then Faraz just, you know, edit it somewhere. I wrote this down during the movie. Okay. This is what I wrote down. You're in a constant state of agitation about not knowing what's happening and hoping that everything will make sense at the end. Then when everything does happen, it very vaguely makes a little sense, and you have to watch it again and study it. Most of the experience is spent in confusion. So remember how last time we talked about Project Power, we talked about movies being for a couple different purposes, right? Art versus entertainment. Mm-hmm. To me, this is neither. This isn't even entertaining. The themes aspect of it, because I still have no idea what's going on. His movies rely, and we've alluded to this, they rely on a third watch. You got to study it. You have to study this like it's like you're studying for a test. I'm not really into all of that. You know what I mean? If it's something that was done artfully, different story. You know, like when we watch a movie and there's little things like we notice that they changed this, they did this camera angle for this reason or whatever. It's kind of a different story, but there's like little plot points that they want us to pick up on a second watch. I don't think it's neither is it artful nor is it entertaining.
Okay, but I think you're completely talking about plot here, and that's why my narrative
that's
score
not
was
themes.
so low. No, it's not, because you're talking about the fact that you can't follow the plot. So that's narrative. And I agree with you, because I felt that state of confusion the entire way. And, you know, it's not uncharacteristic that you need a second watch to really digest those details, right? But I think this fell way too far on the, you know, confusion spectrum. I'm making that term up totally, but on a spectrum from total coherence to total chaos, I think it was too far towards the chaos. And now I need the second watch just to figure out what the hell happened. Whereas usually the second watch is to really understand the finer details and the intricacies, which I'm okay with, right? This was too much that's missing that I need to like go back and figure out. So I totally agree with you there. I'm not going to fault themes at all for that, but I 100% feel you on those aspects of this movie. And I think that's why he just tilted further down the road than he usually is. And that's where I wasn't happy.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the way you look at those categories. For me, that's entirely thematic because, because it's so, all over the place, obviously with the narrative, but even in terms of like, there being like a lesson or something like that, there's nothing I can even follow. Like,
right. If you can't understand what happened, then you surely can't glean a lesson from it, right?
Right.
You can't pick up
they're related.
Because in the narrative, the narrative category, where at least, the direction has some clout. This is a lot more. If there is no story, there is zero theme, right? So. Mm-hmm. Narrative isn't just a story; it's also direction.
I don't think
like
this movie is built to explore any themes because of the frantic pace.
My whole purpose of giving it a 55 was because I couldn't identify a good theme other than very basic surface level stuff.
Right. I think this movie's built as an action thriller, and usually that genre doesn't explore many themes, and so I don't think it's anything to talk the movie down about because it lacks any themes. It's just that this genre typically doesn't have it. So I mean, can't do anything
but Nolan typically has it, right?
He does. He sometimes is able to.
I think we tabled this for the discussion where we can actually get into like what those themes might be or what wasn't there, right? But I mean, I think there are things there. There are messages, or at least there are consistent elements that kind of crop up and kind of develop a palette here. So, but again, agree to disagree, I guess. And maybe it takes the second or third watch to get those things, and that may be to his detriment.
All right, so let's move on to the aesthetics. I did give this a 90.
85.
I'm at a 90.
I'm at a 70.
And I could see all those scores.
So Fahad, I also watched it in Dolby, and I had no issues with hearing anything or missing
dialogue.
What I should say this. Obviously there was a lot of moments where you don't understand what is being said, but that I don't think was because the music was too loud. It's just them mumbling. It's the same thing that happened in Dunkirk. It happened with Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Right? It's just the way Nolan is okay with it having a natural voice, natural dialogue happening.
Right.
As long as you can get like the gist of what it's presenting rather than knowing word for word what is being said.
So
because even in this movie they got masks on, they're talking
wind
and stuff, and you don't hear it. It could be crisp and clear, you still won't be able to distinguish the words perfectly because they're kind of mumbling.
So there is a heavy score going on in nearly every scene. We watched a lot of clips already. There's always a present score going on, and you're completely right about the musical scoring. And you're right about the masks. That only compounded the issue because they're mumbling through them. And that I was not able to hear the dialogue. And I directed one ear to the speakers, and I was actually more interested in hearing the dialogue, even if my eyes were pointed off screen. I was just like, I got to hear what they're saying rather than looking at the screen. I was doing one of those. Yeah, my movie watching experience was pretty miserable because of that. The score,
and that's a big problem.
It is.
Right?
It is a big problem.
I looked up the screenplay after and I couldn't find it because I wanted to know what was said in certain scenes because I was just like, I mean, I'm one of those people that love subtitles, and I get so frustrated when I don't know what was said. But other than that, I still give it a 90 because I thought the music was awesome.
I thought the music was
really,
awesome
really
too.
Kept me going. I'm like, man, this is exciting. I want to keep watching.
Yeah.
So I thought the music and the use of it was great.
Yeah, I have no problems with the music itself, but it was just like oddly placed on top of the dialogue, and then the levels were a little problematic. Were very problematic for me actually. But the music, you're right about it. It's like it creates this atmosphere of constant like threat and like tension. And so it was exciting.
I think it definitely controlled the tempo very well. And I mean it was very enjoyable, kind of all the scoring. It reminded me a little bit of The Dark Knight at times. Kind of like even when things were kind of cooling down, that music kept you kind of going, and I mean it established kind of the tone. Even in kind of the calmer scenes. I don't know that it was Dolby that was kind of hurting. I was watching an IMAX and it was overbearing in that as well. I mean, especially probably partly because of the scoring actually. I mean, there was points where like I was like the entire theater was like shaking, and it made it really difficult to follow the dialogue, which again, like whether you care or not exactly what's being said, a lot of it was pertinent for a movie like this. You have to be able to understand what's going on. And I was really missing my subtitles at home on my couch. So that is something that, again, I think if I rewatch it, I'm going to get a lot more of that. And I'm going to be like, oh, that's great. But for a movie going experience, it was tough. Dunkirk was just like this. And in that movie, I kind of gave it more of a pass because there was a lot going on in that movie where there's a bit of
wasn't important as it is in this one.
Right. And he was giving you very much the experience in that movie of being a soldier in the middle of a battlefield. And, there's so much chaos, there's so much going on that you can't really pick up all those things. So, it's almost like you were in a shell shock state in that movie. And I gave it the pass for that in that movie, but it just carried over here again. So this is kind of the second movie in a row of his where the sound just did not seem balanced.
I gave Dunkirk a pass too for the exact same reason, because you're just supposed to be experiencing it like a soldier would be on the beach, right? But here you need to catch the dialogue to understand the movie. Anyways, enough about the audio. What did you guys think about the cinematography?
So I thought the action scenes were very good. They tied in well with the concept he had built. From that aspect, I think I really liked the movie. There were several shots that I thought were really pretty stunning as well. So for an action movie, I thought it really hit on the action notes that it needs to hit on. And it was generally just very pleasant to watch.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Yusuf just said there as far as cinematography.
But even still, even just knowing it was a Nolan movie, I was like, okay, there's probably going to be a couple of cool action scenes, which there were. And I mean, it was maybe not even just a couple. I mean, there was quite a few. The concept was pretty great, and there were scenes that were filmed that I was like, that's pretty complex, and that must have taken a lot of work to film.
Just to like think about it, right? And to like
just even think about that happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What did you? Well, we can save it for the discussion. I think. I don't want to ruin.
I think we're thinking
but
about the same scene though.
We all are. I think we all are.
Yeah,
the big one.
Just to realize how things would work in that scene and then film it, I was like, wow, that is an amazing action scene.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's like three that I can think of that are all on that caliber. Pretty good. I mean, the music, speaking to the music, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of there just being constant music personally, but even with that kind of faulting my score, I think the rest of it was so good that parts of it were so good and impressive that I still gave it an 85 score.
So I had a bone to pick with the cinematography. While it was like eye-pleasing and eye-candy because the action scenes were so good, I felt like they could have done a better job with the colors that the movie showed. It seemed like, okay, so they're in multiple locations, right? They're hopping all across the globe, but yet it all looked like the same place. All the interior shots looked like they were in the same city, they were in the same building or whatever. If you're going to be...
They probably were.
I mean, they probably were, but you're supposed to be in Italy. You're supposed to be in like India. Well, the India scenes were unique, I guess, because they figured, oh, we're going to throw a bunch of color in here, but all the other interior shots were like very cool blue.
And they were outdoors.
Just like, they could have done a better job.
That's true. I don't think I was able to track in my head very well, like which location they were in. And not that I'm very actively trying to do that, but you know, you're supposed to be able to kind of inherently do that by the, you know, the colors and the, you know, the cinematography is supposed to give your brain hints to that. I didn't really sense that coming through.
Yeah, they're like all over Europe and Asia, and other than like except for like a few scenes, generally I'm not sure what country they were in at certain moments. And that's actually pretty integral to understanding what the story is too. So it just added to the confusion.
Like you said, across the globe. I'm not sure that was like really that important, but I guess this is kind of a criticism that I have overall, is that everything just ended up a little too sprawling for me. Like I thought if he took this concept and made kind of like a tighter story, a tighter concept, he could have explored more and it would have felt more cohesive. But like things just got blown up to the next level where it was like things were just spiraling to a degree that he wasn't able to give you the depth that he normally does. So
I feel like if he had a smaller budget, he would have been forced to constrain some of the elements of the movie and create, like you said, like a more cohesive movie.
Yeah, I mean, maybe his clout is getting him kind of the level of budget that's affecting, you know, his thought process. I don't know.
Yeah.
But overall, so we've discussed all our scores. How did you guys feel just on like an enjoyability standpoint? How did you guys like the movie? Did you enjoy the movie experience this time around?
So I thought it was more work than enjoying.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel the same?
Yeah.
I generally was pretty entertained. I did like the movie. I also enjoyed the experience. Again, it could just be that I haven't been to a theater in like 8 months. But I want to get back to what Farhan said. It's like, you know, preparing for a test or something. It is kind of mind numbing. So like I came out and I'm just trying to process everything, and it's a little much like at midnight, you know. And then this is the thing about rewatching, that I'm okay with rewatching a movie to appreciate the movie. But I hate the idea of having to rewatch a movie to freaking understand it. That bothers me so much. It's like you should not have to rewatch a movie to understand what happened. You should rewatch it to appreciate all the little minutia, the art, all that stuff, like Farhan mentioned. But like if you're like missing big plot points and that's the reason you have to rewatch it, dude, you messed up somewhere, in my opinion. Nonetheless, I did enjoy the movie. I actually was pretty entertained.
I think I agree with you almost 100%. I mean, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just, it's a little too far where it's like I understand so little that now I just need to figure out what the hell's going on, and that's not right to me. But yeah, like I mean, this was a very good action movie. Like start there. I really did enjoy it, and as far as kind
Mm-hmm.
of the studying for a test and stuff, you guys are whatever, man. I mean, I think that's what's happening. I'm nerding out a little bit too much, but I do, I like that stuff. Like I like having kind of the complex little intricacies to break down and understand. And so I do like this movie for that. I felt that there wasn't enough of it, or at least it wasn't tight enough to really be fully explained and fully, drawn out. So, I didn't feel that me being kind of exhausted or my mind racing the entire movie was a bad thing. If a movie can make my mind race the entire way, then I'm quite pleased. So, I think that was there. It's just, it wasn't kind of perfected here. But yeah, like I really did enjoy the movie, and I would recommend people watch it. I think our scores will reflect something different. And I think that's right, because it is lacking kind of when you really sit back and analyze it. By the way, Christopher Nolan, for the first time as long as I can remember, wasn't able to nab Hans Zimmer to do the scoring of this movie. He was on a different project, so that is interesting. I mean, that has become like a signature thing for Christopher Nolan. He's always got Hans Zimmer by his side. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it particularly suffered from that aspect, right? I thought it was still pretty good. I had to look that up to know for sure that it wasn't him.
Yeah, I actually like the music generally, so I'm not gonna really complain about it.
It's a controversial release, this movie was. People didn't know whether it was going to even happen, when it was going to happen, if it was going to happen this year, what the movie experience was going to be like. People didn't even know if movie theaters are going to be around. But I'm glad it did come out. I'm glad that movie theaters came up with the way that people can go and watch the movie if they wanted to safely.
I think it was pretty good on that standpoint, right? I mean, I felt comfortable. I think they did a good job. I'm wondering whether it's really a sustainable model to have that few people in the audience per screening. So I just don't know if they'll keep it up. But I mean, gosh darn it, they're trying. And
Oh, there's also another thing about that, where for this movie, the theaters are getting less of a cut and Warner Brothers is getting
Mm-hmm.
more. Usually they have like a more even split of ticket revenue.
Interesting.
For this one, Warner Brothers is getting more.
so, like, really, I did feel to a degree that they forced this movie out the doors where they were like, nah, bro, we need this one. So like I think if Christopher Nolan had it his way, he probably would have been like, yeah, just delay it for like 6 months and whatever. Like we'll get to it and we'll get it out when we can do it properly. But Warner Brothers was like, bro, like this is gonna be the one that's gonna lure people back into the theaters. And I did feel like I was lured into the theaters a little bit. So I wasn't that happy about it going in, you know what I mean?
But I want to finish on one point. So Yusuf said how he likes that the movie, I guess, has your mind racing. The thing is, when you're going into a movie like this, you should have that kind of expectation out of a Nolan movie at this point. When did Inception come out? Like a decade ago? So Inception, Interstellar, not so much Dunkirk, but like he's kind of become this kind
Memento.
of Memento too, but that's like 20 years ago now. But in general, yeah, but this is what he does, right? So if
Oh
you
my
know
God, it's true.
if you're going out for a Nolan movie, like be ready for that mind-numbing experience. Like, and there's nothing really wrong with it. I'm not faulting the movie for.
Right. Actually, if you look at it, he's very split across the board in terms of he doesn't do all of these types of movies. He's done a very healthy balance of, several of these and like several, different types of feels in movies. But you always know what you're expecting when you go in, right, Faraz? So, there was no doubt going into this movie that it was going to
Yeah.
be this type of high octane, mind racing movie. So, I went in knowing that was what I was going to
Yep.
experience, and I think I enjoyed it for that. But, maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, right?
Yeah, my only thing would be it can be both that and have a more clear narrative.
Yes, and I think his previous projects have done that, and that's why I didn't love this one as much. I'm not going to hit on it too much. I think I really did enjoy it, but it wasn't on that level to me, and I'm okay with that.
All right, so we're going to leave it here for our preview of Tenet. Do go watch this movie. Do your proper precautions, social distancing, masks, and all that. Follow what the theater rules are. I think it is a good theater experience. And yeah, watch out for our discussion, which will be coming out on Monday, September 14th.
And hey, stay after the credits. They play the entire movie in reverse.
What?
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you haven't already, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcast. And remember to support us on Patreon or by sharing the podcast with a friend. Feel free to contact us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at The Twice Over, or email us at comments@thetwiceover.com. All of the music you heard is from Amerigo Gazaway. Check him out on Bandcamp and Spotify.